Woo, what a stinky mess in the Rio Vista neighborhood of Fort Lauderdale this week, last week too.
For the third time, as a matter of fact, in fewer than 2 weeks, raw sewage is pouring from an old and ruptured pipe. And that's a fate quite possible in many South Florida neighborhoods. Aging sewer pipes marked for replacement almost a decade ago here broke twice in the last 2 weeks and once again yesterday in 3 different spots, blocks apart. Its contaminated contents have been literally pouring out.
Fort Lauderdale Commissioner Ben Sorenson lives in the Rio Vista neighborhood with his family, and he joins us live in the studio today. Commissioner, great to have you come in, and we are sorry for what you and your neighbors have been going through, and I got to say, just personally, how bad is it?
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Glenna, for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's bad. This is unacceptable, what's happening in the city of Fort Lauderdale. You know, it's unacceptable that for so long we have delayed maintenance on our core infrastructure, and now as the mayor and the city commission in Fort Lauderdale, now we have to fix it.
So it's interesting to hear you saying that, since you are a commissioner and part of government and respectfully part of the process of making the decisions that were not made.
Yeah, and what we're finding is this is one of the reasons that I ran for election a year ago, is identifying that our infrastructure is failing and has been failing for years, and we haven't done enough to do it. I'm a Navy reservist, and so in the military we're taught when you identify a problem, you find solutions and you execute as quickly as possible, and so that's what we're focused on now, is fixing this.
You know, Commissioner, that sounds great, except for the timeline on this has been years, and a lot of we've heard from a lot of Fort Lauderdale residents who know, because they follow the news, that there has been millions set aside for these upgrades and maintenance that have been spent for other city services. How do you overcome that in the kind of timeline where your city is not looking like this that we're looking at on the video? Right. Tomorrow and next week and next month.
You're right on. The city for years had been taking the return on investment from sewer and stormwater fees and using that for other things in the city. As soon as I got elected, we started phasing that out, and we're halfway through phasing out that transfer of $20 million a year.
Yeah. Commissioner, the cost of repairing this terrible incident here in Rio Vista and now the Himarshi Canal, I mean, the city has responded, I think, in a pretty good way, but with a lot of people. How much is this cleanup costing? Yeah,
so we don't know yet. We are still going to be adding that up. From March 2018, when myself and the mayor and others were elected, we have spent $57 million, $57 million in a little over a year towards our infrastructure. Over the next 6 years, we're slated to spend over $630 million on this problem that has not been addressed.
So the $57 million, was that on new infrastructure or fixing, like whack-a-mole, what keeps breaking?
That was fixing a lot of what was threatened to break, and this sewer line was one of those top prioritized needs for the past 10 years, and we just haven't gotten to it in time.
You and Mayor Trantellis and another commissioner were elected on a sort of a slow, more reasonable growth platform. But I guess last Tuesday, according to the Sun Sentinel, you and 3 of your commissioners voted to allow construction of a 12-story hotel on Fort Lauderdale Beach, which is only going to add to the pressure on water and sewer lines. Now, you did require the developer to pay $55,000 to put in a new 200-foot section of pipe there. But I mean, if you keep voting for these projects, aren't you kind of compounding the problem?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's 2 components to a sewer system. One is capacity, and 2 is structural integrity. So from a capacity standpoint, City of Fort Lauderdale has capacity for about 70 million gallons of sewage a day to process. On average, most days we're processing 40 million gallons a day. So we have significant capacity. Now, capacity is one component. The second component is the integrity of the system, and that's where our system is failing. So we are going to upgrade and improve that integrity of the system so that we can have safe drinking water and sewer systems for our residents.
So going forward, it sounds like the attention is there. It's in the past that is coming back to bite you. So the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and I believe also the EPA, they have requirements, right? You have to send in reports every so often. Is it 4 years of structural assessments and leak detection? Is that where is that? Is that there? And if it's there, how could it have gotten to this point?
So our infrastructure was so bad that about 2 years ago, the state came to the city of Fort Lauderdale and said, your system is so bad, we're going to impose a state decree that is going to mandate you change and upgrade your infrastructure. And if you don't, there are going to be residual fines.
Right.
That's what we were faced with when we came into office, and that's what we're working to fix.
Yeah, well, just to be clear about it, Miami-Dade County is under a consent decree with the EPA because its system was failing and still does fail occasionally, not quite as dramatically as what we have seen in Rio Vista.
And you're right on. And this is a problem, look, major urban cores are facing. So are we going to develop a strong infrastructure system that not only is going to fix for the long term, but also be a resilient one as we deal with climate change and global warming? And that's what we're doing in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And we're going to do that day in and day out until we get there.
So meanwhile, we are looking at what I believe is the Tarpon River, or one of the canals off of it. This has been contaminated. There's no other way to say it. People's lawns, people's driveways, contaminated with sewage. The cost to them personally and the cost to clean up the environment, how is that being handled?
Yeah, and I've been walking literally right on that street in boots with fire rescue, going door to door and knocking and talking to folks. We have a environmental impact remediation company that's on site literally day in and day out, not only pressure washing, cleaning, bleaching, we're also going to fix lawns and landscaping and everything as necessary.
How about legal liability? Is the city going to be looking at lots of lawsuits?
I think that's always a possibility, and that's why we're acting now as fast as possible to do everything we can to mitigate.
Ben Sorenson, great to have you here.
Thank you for
sitting on the
having
hot
me.
seat today.
It's an honor being here.
We'll come
we'll
back
have you
soon.
back,
Have me
maybe
back.
for a happier topic.
That sounds
maybe.
good.
Okay, Ben
Thank you.
Sorenson, thanks. All right, up next, we're going to go to the round table. Boy, have we got a lot to talk about. Wow.